Glory to God. As Pastor said, it's the 51st Sunday. Si bon Dieu ka ban non 51 dimanche. And I can tell you, and I'm sure you know, none of us back in March, none of us knew if we would make it that far. We could only believe we would. So if God has done it that far, and I believe He will continue to do it. So nous prêts pour nous entrer en 2021 triomphalement. La paix pour Dieu avec vous. Que Satan content, que Satan fâché, que Corona content, qu'il fâché avec Jésus, n'a rentré en 2021 triomphalement. Nous disons bon Dieu merci et nous disons pasteur merci too. It was a great moment of worship. It's always good to see the young people worshiping God, not just worshiping God, but worship Him with passion. La paix bon Dieu avec vous. Nous contents ouais passion et serviteur passion petite bon Dieu pour adorer bon Dieu parce que bon Dieu digne de adoration. He's worthy of our praise and worship. Let's turn to the book of Joshua. Joshua, and we're going to read a few verses. Joshua chapter Josué. Josué vient après Deutéronome. On regarde dans Josué chapitre 7. Joshua chapter 7, we're going to read from verse 10 through verse 13. Il dit, l'Éternel dit à Josué, lève-toi. Pourquoi restes-tu ainsi couché sur ton visage? Israël a péché. Ils ont transgressé mon alliance que je leur ai prescrite. Ils ont pris des choses dévouées par interdit. Ils les ont dérobées et ont dissimulées et ils les ont cachées parmi leurs bagages. Aussi, les enfants d'Israël ne peuvent-ils résister à leurs ennemis? Ils tourneront le dos devant leurs ennemis, car ils sont sous l'interdit. Je ne serai plus avec vous si vous ne détruirez par l'interdit du milieu de vous. Verset 13 pour Fédé. Lève-toi, sanctifie-toi, lève-toi, sanctifie le peuple. Tu diras, sanctifiez-vous pour demain, car ainsi parle l'Éternel, le Dieu d'Israël. Il y a de l'interdit au milieu de toi, Israël. Tu ne pourras résister à tes ennemis jusqu'à ce que vous ayez ôté l'interdit du milieu de vous. Parole du Seigneur. I would like Sister Cassie to read the same passage for us in English. There are some words I believe that some of you may not get in French. Would you please read it for us, Sister Cassie?
Joshua chapter 7, verses 10 through 13. The Lord said to Joshua, stand up. What are you doing down on your face? Israel has sinned. They have violated my covenant, which I have commanded them to keep. They have taken some of the devoted things they have stolen. They have lied. They have put them with their own possessions. That is why the Israelites cannot stand against their enemies. They turn their backs and run, because they have been made liable to destruction. I will not be with you anymore, unless you destroy whatever among you is devoted to destruction. Go, consecrate the people. Tell them, consecrate yourselves in preparation for tomorrow. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. That which is devoted among you, O Israel. You cannot stand against your enemies until you remove it. The word of the Lord.
Thank you. Merci. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for the reading, Sister Cassie. The whole month, I would say starting November, Pastor told us God led him to have us preach on holiness. And today, again, we still have our eyes on this topic called holiness. When God called anyone, anybody, there is one request he makes, and this request is to deny yourself. Français a dit, renoncer à vous-même. Deny yourself. And deny yourself leads to this word called surrender. And there is a reason why God wants us to deny ourselves. There is a reason why He wants us to deny so we can surrender to Him and Him alone. Because the only way a person can live or can lead a holy life is by surrendering yourself to God. Is by denying yourself. Because as you walk with God, there are a few things or a couple things that God will ask you to do. You would not want to do them. You will not be willing to do them because yourself will get in the way. Your emotions will get on the way. Your intelligence will get on the way. And when God is doing His thing, when God is doing His will, He don't want anything on His way. And whatever or whoever that get on God's way, I feel sorry for you because He will crush you. Because God's will always prevail, and that's what Jesus understood when He prayed. He said, God, your will be done. We should be able to pray that prayer all the time. God, not my will, but thy will. And sometimes God's will to us is hard to understand. God's will to us is sorrow sometimes. Because there is time when God see you on your way, doing certain things, hanging out with some people, being friends with somebody, will walk through and tell you He wants to cut that person out of your life. And sometimes this person means so much to me. Sometimes this person means so much to you. But guess what? There are things that God knows that we don't know. There are things that is ahead of you, waiting for you to hurt you, even destroy you, that you don't know. But God knows. Today, first thing I'm going to ask you is, did you deny yourself? And are you ready to surrender to God? Because when He asks you certain things, are you going to do it? As I said before, holiness at times is not just how you dress. Holiness, it simply means obey God. Live for God. Do what He wants. Not what I want, not what you want. Joshua was a man that walked with God. He was a man chosen by God after Moses, a great man of God. A man that everyone is talking about. A man a man that has seen a lot of great and miraculous things. And God, Moses. But there is something that God will tell Moses in Numbers chapter 20, I believe verse 10. Let's take a look at it. Numbers chapter 20, verse 12. If you find it, you can read it, please.
Then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, because you did not believe me to hallow me in the eyes of the children of Israel. Therefore, you shall not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them.
Faut ça dit, alors l'Éternel dit à Moïse et à Aaron, parce que vous n'avez cru en moi pour me sanctifier aux yeux des enfants d'Israël, vous ne ferez point entrer cette assemblée parlant du peuple Israël dans le pays que je lui donne. I feel like, how can God, after using Moses so mightily, and Moses disobeyed him, and because of this disobedience, God said, you know what? Forget about you. Forget Canaan. I got somebody else. And that somebody was Joshua. God fires Moses and even have the audacity to tell Moses, lay your hands on Joshua, impart to him what I had put in you. Now, if you a person that never deny yourself, you would not obey God after he reject you, after he called you a failure, and go lay hands on Joshua to succeed you, that's going to take these people you brought so far. But guess what? God's still talking about Moses. Moses is still one of the greatest men ever. Because Moses understood when he took these people to Canaan, to the land that God had promised them, the glory would not belong to him. It would belong to God. So now, if he did not make it there, so it does not mean anything to him. In other words, Moses had nothing to lose because it was God's will, it was God's people. The glory was always belong to God. But today we have people that are working for God. They want to start and they want to finish no matter what. Even though they have sin in their lives. Do you know some pastors, some preachers, some men and women of God should quit long time ago? Should go sit down somewhere? Because they should have no business preaching because they have sin in their lives. And guess what? People who have sin in their lives, later also that God will expose them. That's why today you've seen a lot of famous preachers being exposed, not because they just fall, not because they just sin. No! They've been sinning. How I know that same Moses. Let's take a look at Exodus chapter 4. Let's see how God had to deal with Moses before. Exodus chapter 4, verse 24. In 24, chapter 4, verse 24. I was in chapter 24. If you find it, could you please read it?
Exodus
Chapter 4, verse 24.
Exodus chapter 4, verse 24. At a lodging place in the way, the Lord met Moses and was about to kill him.
And was about to do what?
To kill him.
God was about to kill Moses. The Moses that he called, the Moses that he'd been using. Français a dit, pendant le voyage en un lieu où Moïse passa la nuit, l'Éternel l'attaqua et voulut le faire mourir. Why would God try to kill Moses? The man that he has invested so much in him. Some of us, God has invested so much in us. God has brought us like far to get us here. Why would he try to kill us? Sin, disobedience. Always remember the same God of love, we call him a loving God, but he also a God of righteousness. He is a righteous God. Moïse taking deputy, he has two sons. God told him before, because God spoke to Abraham that every male child had to be circumcised the 8th day. Moses knew he should circumcise them, his sons, and he never did. Yet he's working with God and he's working for God. But one day, God said, I got enough. I'm hoping that none of us wait long enough to get God at that point to say, I've had enough. And the Bible said the Holy God, one day, he said, Moses, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to put an end to it. It's either you obey me or I kill you. Some people say, what kind of God is that? The loving God, the gracious God, the compassionate God, the merciful God. He's still the same God. But when he asks us to do something, it's our responsibility. He is expecting us to do it. Because it is always his will. Remember, God's will always prevail over your will. You may think you slick, you may think you got away. No, you haven't. God is waiting for his compassion, his love, his mercy, his patience. The Bible calls God long suffering. He is waiting for you enough. But one day, he will expose you, even try to kill you. But thank God for Moses' wife that was around when God attacked Moses, choking him, and his wife got 2 stones and cut them and sharpened them, and quickly she herself circumcised the boys. And verse 25, I believe, tells us that God changed his mind. Can you read verse 25, please?
But Zipporah took a flint knife, cut off her son's foreskin, and touched Moses' feet with it. Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me, she said.
In verse 26,
so the Lord let him alone.
The Lord let him alone because of Sephorah's action. Because of his wife's action, his wife circumcised them. Then God said, now we can talk now. Now let's make a deal now. Now let's get this thing done. Surrendering. It looks like at the beginning, Moses had a hard time surrendering himself to God. But we have to surrender ourselves to God. And today, I got a feeling God is telling some of us we need to cut somebody off. We need to cut some friends. We need to cut some activities. We need to cut some habits. We need to cut it off because God really wants us to walk with Him. Because where God is taking you, guess what? That person is not going with you. Some people, you can only, God wants you to be a friend with them just to make it through high school. Just to make it to this class. Just to make it to that frame time, that period of time. But once you cross over, God wants you to cut it out. Cut that person out. Because He's calling you to a place. And that place, until that person is out, you will not get there. Let's back to Joshua chapter 7. Verse 13, I believe, it told us something like until. Josué 7, verset 13. Lève-toi, sanctifie le peuple, tu diras, sanctifiez-vous pour demain. Car ainsi parle l'Éternel, le Dieu d'Israël, il y a de l'interdit au milieu des trois Israël. Tu ne pourras résister à tes ennemis jusqu'à ce que... There is something God is asking you to do. Something He wants to do for, but He will not do until you do what He's asking you to do. Histoire ça, it's about a man called Achan. After Joshua is the captain of the army of God, as the general, as the leader, he had a good victory at Jericho. A great victory. They were celebrating. And then God said, well, there is a little city, a little town called Ai. Now, Ai is next. I want you to go and destroy them. Then Joshua said, well, let's go. And then Joshua, who forgot if God asked him to surrender his will, not your will, not your way, but God's way. And then he started the A. What it is? Ai is only a small town, probably 1,000 people or so. We don't need all this army. Why waste our time and energy and our equipment? Why? I'm not taking this great army to Ai. And God told him, take the army to Ai and go and destroy them. He said, I'm not taking the whole army. I will take a couple thousand soldiers. He took about 3,000 soldiers. Disobedient. God told you, take my army. It's my army, not your army. Take my army there. He took 2,000. Guess what? God watched them flee from this little town. And they lost 36 soldiers, 36 men got killed by these people and Ai. Not just that. The reason they were killed, there was a man by the name Achan. There were some forbidden items that God told them you can't touch them. You can't do it. Don't do it. Don't touch them. Guess what? Achan did exactly what God told him not to do. And that Achan caused 36 men lost their lives. How many times God told us not to do things? And you can see one Achan did it. One Achan, one man did it. And it looks like they believed their whole army. They believed everybody. I learned one thing here. As the church, we are one family. We are one group. If one of us do something wrong, guess what? They blame all of us. They say, these people, this church, French-speaking Baptist Church of New Haven, these people, these youth, it's them people. So it is important when we pray, we need to pray for one another. So God keep us strong. So God give us a life of victory, a victorious life, a triumphant life. So when the enemy is trying to have one person fail, so the enemy will find he's not fighting against that one person, but he's fighting against a whole army, the whole youth, the whole church is fighting against. And I tell you what, the Bible says one is stronger than two. I mean, two is stronger than one. And three is stronger than two. I believe it's in Deuteronomy where it says one can chase 1,000, but two can put 10,000 to fly. One chase 1,000, but two can chase 10,000 because two are more powerful than one. Let's pray for one another. Let's watch for one another. Let's stand for one another because Achan committed the sin. He stole those forbidden items and he caused 36 soldiers to lose their lives. So God is looking for young people to surrender themselves. If God said, no, don't touch this, you better not touch it. If God said, cut this one out, and I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes the person God is asking you to cut out, there is nothing wrong with that person. Sometimes they are good people, good people, but guess what? There is something I learned in Bible school about weed. Ça veut dire zeb Haïti. Définition non pour zeb, parce que Haïti, ça veut dire zeb, c'est zeb. C'est bête qui mange zeb. Zeb, c'est zeb. Zeb pas donné pour tes fruits. But what I heard, if I go in a cornfield, and in that cornfield, you find some other fruits pop up, some other trees or weeds pop up, let's say tomato tree, pop up in my cornfield. Tomatoes good, we all eat tomatoes. But in that cornfield, this tomato is weed. Why I am not growing tomatoes, I'm growing corn. If you are growing a cornfield and some beans pop up, you have to pull it out because you're not growing beans, you're growing corn, not beans. So what they try to say here, there are people in our lives, it's not that they are bad people, but they just want people, one person for your destiny. Where God is taking you, that person will only pull you back. And not just that, that person will attract certain things that you don't want to deal with. Parce que tomate, par exemple, là, remet tomate en pile. Quelques vieux, belles vieux insectes, lorsque pied tomate là, levé, dans mi-temps, pied maïs, eh bien, il attiré rat. Eh bien, c'est ça que fait a lot of young people end up in jail. Not because they bad, but for some reason they just hang out with that one person. So Joshua had to stand up and do what God asked him to do. He had to go back and find out who that Achan was. And praise God, he found that Achan. And some of us, the enemy is putting us back. We are going backward instead of going forward. And the problem is Achan. Not going Achan, no vino. But like the verse 13 said, until we pinpoint until we can put our finger on that Achan, we find who that Achan and pull him out. We'll never move forward. And God has great destiny. God said, the land I promise, you are taking these people there, regardless what's in the land. But I am with you. But when God is with you, He wants you to do what He tells you to do. If He tells you cut Achan off, pull him out of the army, pull him out. Don't feel sad, don't feel bad about him. God says so, my father says so, my boss says so, therefore I will do what my boss said. You cannot be holy if you disobey God. Moses disobeyed. He paid the price. And God had Joshua to replace it. Now, I don't know who God has to replace you. God had Elisha to replace Elijah. So I don't know who God has to replace me or to replace you. Whoever is disobeying him. But he always has somebody to replace whoever. He's lack of nothing, he's lack of nobody. He got everything that he did. So let's surrender our will to God and ask him to help us to obey him no matter what. Because without obedience, we can't talk about holiness. We cannot be holy when we disobey God. Amen.